Welcome to the latest episode from Isolation to Inspiration. This podcast is conceived so that Paul, Boross and I can meet with motivational leaders to get a fresh perspective on the current state of the world whilst learning and laughing.
Our guest on this edition of From Isolation to Inspiration is regarded as one of the leading consultants in the area of personal growth in Europe today. He's a licensed master trainer of NLP, qualified hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, and best-selling author. He has also forged a successful career as a highly effective corporate trainer and consultant. What sets him apart from his peers is his hands-on, direct, no-nonsense approach, which, while challenging at times, is always fabulously effective. His warmth, authenticity and passion for life are contagious. So contagious, in fact, that even if you wear a mask, you will still catch his charisma virus. Brian Colbert, welcome to From Isolation to Inspiration.
Thanks very much, guys. Good to meet you and good to be here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. You've written one of my favorite books ever, The Happiness Habit. How do people make themselves happier in these difficult times?
Well, the rules are still the same. And the science is still the same. So when you're talking about happiness, really it comes down to endorsement, engagement, and attunement. And just to translate that, basically, it's just really how you make yourself feel. Remember, happiness is something that you do equally well when we say happiness, just as much as when we say anxiety. Anxiety is something that we do. We just say you're in the act of anxietying, yeah? So it's something you do. Therefore, if you do it, you can change it. And basically equally well with happiness, it being a skill, you can do it or not. That's the first thing. The next thing really is about how you control your internal state, what you can do inside your mind to be able to change how you feel. Remember, it's not what happens on the outside, but basically on the inside that you have the most control. You can't really control what's happening on the outside, but you can control how you respond to it on the inside. So really it is about you knowing what to do, how to feel, but also having goals and projects and plans. Really, happiness is all about feeling that you're in control of your life or having a sense of direction, having a sense of focus or moving forward. And it's one of the critical things when you say now in this time, what people need to feel is a sense of progress. And that's the big critical thing, that you actually have a level of control. Now, there's lots of the controls gone, and especially the environmental control is kind of being taken away. And people underestimate the power of that, how powerful your environment is on yourself. Your environment, this is what we call social contagion, that the way your environment works, it literally does have an impact on how you feel for sure, okay? But just because it has that impact, it doesn't mean you can't change how you feel in reaction to it or in response to it. At the moment, most people are reacting to the environment. That's kind of a little bit gives you a cue to how their brain works. But really, you have to become more responsive within this environment.
Welcome, Brian. Thank you, and great having you here. So it's about the idea of picking on what you just said. It's about, I suppose, the response able, isn't it? That we're all able to respond to whatever happens in our life. It's just obviously how we choose to kind of like, either we see it as an adversity or a challenge or a problem, or we see it as an opportunity. It's all about the frame of mind as well, I suppose.
Absolutely. And really, when we're talking about it, see, it's this whole impact of that it's environmental first. That's the biggest thing that we got to recognize, that it's something that we didn't expect. If you were saying you were thinking bad or you weren't up to form or whatever, kind of there and then that you can do something about it. But when something happens in the environment, it feels more real. That's the biggest challenge. Now, the reality is the virus is real, but ultimately what it also feels like that it's less tangible. That what do I do now? They're after taking away all the good stuff. I can't go out, or I can't socialize, I can't meet people, I can't meet my friends, I can't do the basic things in life in terms of I can't connect. And, we're social creatures, so we need to connect. And when you change the system literally through a virus, then it's like one wheel came off the car and we don't really know how to drive so well. We need to learn new ways. Now, the biggest challenge that we've got, we know the way the brain works. The brain avoids danger first. That's what it does. So when we're engaged in an environment, when danger happens, then we have to automatically react. That's how the emotions work. The emotions are designed to create a little bit of delay in terms of human beings so that we can actually make decisions. But for the most part, when we're hit with something so big, so extreme, and hit by media in all sorts of forms saying that it's really dangerous, it's going to kill us and all that type of stuff, and there's facts and truth and all of that, then it's hard, literally, to be able to engage and react in that. So what actually happens is our brain gets hijacked. And when our brain gets hijacked, then we're in primitive mode. What's actually happening then, we're in reactive mode. So we're going fight, flight, or freeze. What we need to do immediately, right there and then, is we need to move up the gears in the brain. If you could consider the brain as kind of in 3 chunks in that way. Basically, you got your reptilian brain, you got your limbic system, you got your frontal lobes. We need to drive up and change gear and get up into the frontal lobes. The frontal lobes is where we do the thinking and actually where calmness actually is. So the first thing you need to do, and this is something you need to do pretty much straight away and regularly, because you're being attacked, and very often unconsciously. Remember, this is an attack on your system, and that's the thing that produces anxiety. And anxiety gets displaced. It gets literally runs around the system in a way, basically, whereby you don't know where to place it, you don't know where to output it. So the first and most simple thing that you can do is take a deep breath in, basically hold, then begin to exhale very slowly, and then take a deep breath in again. Do this for about 5 to 6 times. That is simply getting you to get oxygen into the frontal lobe. So in very simple terms, a technique you can do at any time is breathe in, hold, basically, and exhale and release. Basically, and do that about 7 or 8 times. At that point in time, what you're actually doing is getting yourself out of the reactive phase, the fight, flight, or freeze phase, and into the thinking phase. This is one of the first simple things you can do, which you'll probably have to do every single time you see someone wearing a mask wrong or wearing the neck masks. You know, the new neck masks that they make? I think that prevents, things from being, I believe the virus goes through your neck or something like that. Or sometimes, because they forget to put it on their face. Do you ever notice that?
I think it's for people with a brass neck, isn't it?
That's what it is. Them. Yeah, I think, yeah. I'm sure it works.
It isn't, guys. It's to pick up your food. When you're eating, all the crumbs, instead of falling on the floor, they're falling inside the mask.
It's the modern day pelican bib.
That's responsible. That's very responsible behavior. I like that. That's environmental, and that's all good. And it's interesting when they talk about the environment and stuff like that. When you look at how this has actually occurred, a lot of people don't really know the context of how this has really truly occurred. And we often talk about, it came from China, it's through bats and all that stuff. But really, the reason why these things are getting through the system is because the predators that actually feed on the smaller predators like rats and bats and all that stuff are getting wiped out through environmental damage and stuff like that. So this is a big, huge problem that we've got. It's not just as simple as a virus being translated from a wet market type of thing. There's a bigger issue at hand here. And there are things we kind of really need to be looking at as well. But really, when it comes to yourself and where you are and stuff like that, it really is about you saying to yourself, okay, this is affecting me. Now, it's going to impact you whether you're either introverted or extroverted, depending what your preference is. Now, I'm mostly introverted, which basically means I don't like people. Yeah, I just make money off them. Do you know what I mean?
Goodbye.
Exactly. So, it just means that I need more time in the cave. And the difference with me, basically, is that, the virus has gone on since March, or really before type of thing. I probably only discovered it around, last month or so, because I noticed there was more people in my house. And, introverts tend to stay in the cave. That's what they tend to do. So a lot of the time, a lot of these big changes that have happened have not, fortunately for me, have not really affected me that much. Okay. The thing that it's actually done is because I work a lot by myself, or I work within that sort of smaller frame of people. So we don't have as much damage in that way. That being said, we have people coming in, they're called extroverts, into our house, and they want to play games. They want to build stuff and make stuff and talk at you and stuff like that. That's what extroverts do. They do a lot of outward stuff. So when they come in, it's chaos. So we have to find a new cave within our cave. But the extroverts really have had it the toughest. Really what's happening for those guys is that basically really everything that they do, the social stuff that they do, they get their energy from connecting out with people. That stuff has been taken away from them. So that's pretty challenging for those people. Now, what they do automatically, again, this is really important how you actually approach this. What they do automatically, say, okay, now I got so much energy, I got to do something with it. Okay, which is kind of smart in one way. But what they're not allowing for is a lot of that energy is actually anxiety. Basically, it's a build-up of tension. So they have to find out how they're doing their anxiety first. And if they can figure out how they're doing that, then they can begin to release. Now, we do anxiety in different ways. We can do it like through, catastrophizing, through imagination, through what we call temporal. Basically, we can bring the future into the present, imagine all the wrong things happening type of thing. Or we can do it through physical tension. Basically, so that's why exercise is so good. But the trick is really to recognize how are you doing your anxiety, whether you're introverted or extroverted, and begin to figure out and break it down and begin to do behaviors that release that tension. It's not just about doing things per se. It's not just about having plans or projects or goals. It's about making sure that you're dealing with the physical consequences of your reaction or response to this situation here. And that is about how am I reacting to this? How am I responding to this? How am I producing tension in my body? How is it displaced? And how can I begin to navigate through it? How can I begin to change how I'm responding or interacting with that? And that's why exercise is so important. And it's a good idea first thing in the morning to exercise. Whatever way you do it, it's a better idea to work up a sweat while you're actually doing it. These are things that are going to release chemicals into the body. They're actually useful, gives a sense of control, gives a sense of focus, and that allows us to move through the day feeling that we're in control. Remember, the big thing here is to feel that you're in more control. As Richard Bandler probably would say, act as if you're the controlling element in your life. This is a bit like that here. So there's a lot of control mechanisms that you can control, but there's a lot that you can't. There's a lot that you can't do, but there's also a lot that you can. And it's really about flicking the switch and saying, okay, here I am. This is where I'm not ignoring where you are, not questioning where you are in that way, saying, well, I want to get back to the way it was. It's not going back. Okay. The bottom line is, if we look at it, this is just one of many perhaps. So the reality is you got to say, okay, here I am. What can I do with this? Basically, how can I work with this? Rather than trying to go rose-colored glasses, looking back at the past and wondering, basically it was so great. If we think about it really realistically, most people think life is shit, basically. So, and the thing is now, it's only grades of it, So the bottom line is that you can be sure if you went back into the past, you were probably moaning, whinging, whining, complaining about how bad things were. Maybe you was too busy on the tube or something like that, or some idiot said something, he ate your lunch or something. I don't know, but life was terrible then, and it's just still terrible now. It's just that it's a different form of terrible. And the only thing that you have to do is just get on with it and move through it. The reality is, yes, it is challenging and all of that stuff, but guess what? We're human beings. We're good with challenge. The great thing about this one is that, if you look at the way it is now, what I love to see, which is the really good stuff, is that just like in wartime, these things happen. The best of human nature is coming out. People are reaching out and people are connecting, and the really good stuff, the really strong values of stuff where people are actually just being kind to one another, being decent to one another, helping, looking out for one another, doing things for free, all this type of stuff. This stuff is starting to happen, which is it's really what what humanity should be about. And that did happen in small communities. Well, guess what? Our communities are getting smaller now. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not such a bad thing.
I was going to say, Brian, that unless you're an introvert like you, and this has been the happiest time of your life, so
this is it. I can sit and smile at everybody else and say, losers, I am doing fine. I don't know what the problem is. Do you know what I mean? Now, Carl will have it.
Sorry, Brian. I was going to say that. Listen, your life was terrible before anyway. It's just a different type of terrible. Okay, this is terrible on your own. Look at the amount of money you're saving. So I love it.
Yeah. So, just once you come to terms with that, life is shit, it's all good. Do you know what I mean? Once you can accept it, it's, in NLP, we call it a threshold pattern. Okay. There's a point in time in the happiness habit, I talk about feeling the fuck it factor faster. But there's a time we say, fuck it, So, and that's all you got to do is get to that point where I say, fuck it. There's nothing I can do. When someone gives you grief or gives you hassle or life is just tough, there is a point where you say, fuck it. Fuck it. Yeah, I don't care now. I'm just going to enjoy myself. It doesn't matter. I'm going to die or something bad's going to happen. But guess what? I'm going to smile on the way. And guess what? That's the best way to do it, really, because the reality is one day you're going to be right. You're going to die. Something's going to happen. If it's not, karma's going to get you, and it's definitely not coming after me, basically. But if karma's not going to get you, something's going to get you.
I love it, Brian. I know you published a lot of books, but I think the fuck it approach is the absolute best one. Your life was shit anyway could be the
I love feel the fuck it factor faster. That's the best alliteration that we've had on this series, to be honest.
We're all about positive thinking here. This is what this is all about. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We don't see the negative at all. Like, basically, we just know it's negative. That's the difference. Yeah. So, but no, it really is about, the end of the day is that, yes, of course, it's challenging. Yes, of course, it's difficult. But life has always been, and the thing is, we are really resilient. As human beings, we're capable of digging in within, and always, if you look at peak performers, people that really perform well, very often they come from a place of hardship or from difficulty or from starvation or from rape or really bad circumstances. And the good stuff comes from that. So this is a tough time for a lot of people, and a lot of people have suffered and all the rest and are continuing to suffer. But ultimately, this is a time where we can shine. This is a time where we can actually do something. We can begin to dig deeper into ourselves and see what the human spirit truly is capable of. Because it's in adversity. Remember, the brain moves away from danger first. It does that to survive. We're in a dangerous place. The good stuff is if we respond and react the way the brain functions and the way it operates, then we'll come up with the good stuff. That's how good music is born. Basically, that's how the great ideas happen, like through recessions and all these type of places.
And one of the things I've got to say, Brian and Paul, I'm not sure if you agree. I think I don't really understand why people worry. Because look, we've got Boris Johnson in charge of everything. If you look at the logic in everything that has been done since COVID has come in, I just don't understand why people are concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been completely logical, everything they've done.
No, I agree with it completely. And he's got good relations with Donald Trump, who is a leader and a spearhead for humanity, who loves people, loves women in particular. I think we're in a good place. Do you know what I mean? And hopefully we'll have someone as well. In Ireland, we kind of see the difference in Ireland. Our political party is a little bit different. We've one party that thinks they're just happy to be in power and say, thanks very much. We do anything now. We talk to anybody. It'd be great. Then we another party that's in power, and they say, we know what we're doing. They don't, but we know what we're doing. We're going to do it, and that's it. The problem is in Ireland, both of these parties are now in power, so nobody knows what the hell is going on. I think it's great, because at least now we know that they don't know, which is really useful. Before they said that they did. Do you know what I mean? Now we know nobody knows what they're doing. In Ireland, they're saying the economy is doing really well, and the revenue to the exchequer is bigger than they expected. And you're saying, and you're in charge? Really? Yeah. Okay, so it just shows they've no clue, and nobody does. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So all you can do in those places is say, fuck it, I'm going to just deal with what is happening as it happens, do the best, use the smart stuff, of course, social distance. I think social distance is really good, but I can't help that, because I'm an introvert, basically. But the bottom line is, because I'm the guy that if you go into the shop, when you go into the shop and the guy comes out, can I help you? I turn around and walk away, basically, because why is he talking to me? If I wanted to talk to him, do you know what I mean? So basically, I'm not into that type of stuff. So the world is becoming progressively a better place. I feel, and that's science. Actually, it's not just a feeling; it's another thing. It's actually scientific. I'm sure it is. Somewhere there's a scientist saying I'm true. I reckon so. I'm sure. People don't recognize how great I am, and it's later they'll recognize all these truths that I'm telling you.
It is said that we live in a world our questions create, and it's true. Those that have succeeded in life, those that stand out, those that have made a difference, those that are inventing, those that are exploring, pushing the boundaries of reality are based on those that have asked themselves empowering questions. In my new book, The Question, Find Your True Purpose, I help you find your true purpose, find your legacy. For more information, go to www.thequestion.co.
Well, I can see Boris Johnson and Donald Trump calling you very, very soon after they hear this, to be honest, because you're the kind of guy they want.
You mean the Don? I call him the Don, basically. So, whereas Boris, Boris, yeah, I'm a bit jealous of Boris because he's got more hair than I have. But apart from that, I think we can see through that. Do you know what I mean? Basically, I think we'd be good.
I seriously, but it is the fuck it approach with these guys, because when you look at the process of everything we've gone through, from okay, there's COVID, not in England, not in England. Okay, so then everyone carry on staying out, and then all of a sudden, guys, carry on going out, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, when everyone's had masks on, hold on a minute, put your masks on. But before you do, go and spend money in the pubs. I want thousands of you to go into all the pubs, all the clubs, and just do as much as you can. Oh, hold on a minute. No, you can't now. Now, I want you to also not go to drink after 10 p.m. because you can't drink after 10 p.m. It's just kind of and hold on, it's only 6 of you. I know it was 600 on Friday, but not today, because the COVID won't come out after 10, or will come out at 10. That's why you've got to be at home at 10.
Well, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that the COVID sleeps at nighttime. We all know that. It's obvious. It's plainly obvious. Like, you know,
and nobody could have predicted it. That's the thing, because we have a cabinet made up of goldfish.
Yeah.
Who kept going, what was that? Oh, what was that? Oh, and it's like, I love the brass neck of them to go, nobody could have predicted this. What? Everybody did.
But Paul, I've got to say, the great thing is because UK is actually leaving the EU. Okay, you see, so now because it's not within the EU, the European flights, you know, that you can travel to countries without having to stay in for 14 days. But because we're outside the UK now, don't think that UK is outside of Europe. I think people don't understand that. That's why you've got to come back and you've got to stay at home for 14 days because you've been in Europe. Because it's different.
Yeah.
See, now the COVID doesn't have a European, it's got a European passport, can't travel to the UK. So it's all perfectly logical. I don't really understand why people are confused.
It should be called the Europe virus, I think. It really should be. You know what I mean? Because I think it actually happened here and we caused it. And what I like is the fact that here we are, an Irishman, a Hungarian guy, and an Italian telling the Brits what's wrong. I prefer to do it that way. I think it's
Spanish.
He's Spanish. So apologies, sorry, Bernardo. Yeah, well, it's the same difference. Spain, Italy, all those places are the same. You know what I mean? They're foreign. Do you know what I mean? Anywhere out there, like, you know what I mean? So that's just how it works, like that. So.
Your excuse was you're an introvert. You've been at home for many years. I get it. I understand.
Yeah, I don't really understand how the world works. Only my world. And all I care about is my world because I got a sense of entitlement. And I think I'm entitled to hate the virus. I'm entitled to wear a mask on my head or my ass. I'm entitled to do what I like because I'm entitled. And as a human being, I can have opinions. And opinions are important and facts aren't important. You got to remember facts are important. Facts are way overrated. You got to get rid of this throwing facts around in science. It's just not useful. It's confusing people. And people don't know what to do. They can't do what they want. Do you know what I'm saying? This is tough stuff. Like, you know,
freedom. That's why. That's what Boris Johnson talked about. That kind of free-thinking freedom, whereby you can do what the hell you want because you're
entitled to it. Yeah, well, you're a human being, and you were born, and God bred life into your body, and as a result, you can breathe. And who would ever take away a mask from you for that reason? Because that's just Satan. Actually, that's the devil taking off the world.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's not the virus. God has sent the virus to clean up our act. That's really what's happened, I think. I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah, it might be science as well.
That's science.
I really hope, but seriously, out of what's happening now, I really hope that, you know, there are people that come forward that have, you know, a brain and decide to get rid of these politicians, these leaders that we have, because it's an absolute joke. It really is a joke. Where is the leadership? What's happening?
Yeah, and it is, as you say, like basically it is challenging and really, you know, for all the joking, there is a sense of fumbling through and there is a level where we don't know what to do. But what we can do is control how we're responding and be responsible in that way and begin to sort of build sort of better futures in that way, of course. And it is challenging. And the old guard is dying. We know that. Well, hopefully the earth isn't gone before the old guard dies. We know there's a shift in power. There's a shift in perception. The internet done a lot of that stuff, the deconstructed power and social norms and stuff like that. The problem is there's also an increase in polarization as well, so that you get sort of likes of Boross or the likes of Donald and stuff like that in between. They're kind of challenging times, but ultimately, really, we do have a lot of power. You have this social force that you can get like-minded people together and they can do some really good stuff. But remember, the virus is real. That's the real deal. The levels at which it impacts is different to different people, and it's really tough on younger people in particular. When we say this, I suppose the solution really is because children don't get it so much or they're less carriers and older people suffer for it. As older people, we know everything. So therefore, if we culled all of the young people between the ages of 18 to 40, then the virus would probably be gone. I reckon that might actually solve it.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That seems very reasonable.
I know. I think so. Basically, because they're just in the way. Do you know what I mean? And we've got young kids, they'll grow up, and they'll know not to mess with us. And even if they do, we'll be dead by then. So everything will be sorted. I don't see any problem at all. I don't know why we're even talking about this.
Yeah, next subject. Next subject.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I do think, though, really, I suppose all we can do, at least all I can do in this context, is offer kind of my insights on what you can do for yourself, really, in a context like this. And that is about how can you control your own emotional state? How can you begin to set plans and projects and forward? How can you give yourself that sort of sense of progress, that sense of moving forward? And that is about doing things, but it's also being very well aware of noticing the impact on your body. And that means about exercise. That means about breathing. That means about those things. And even meditating and stuff like that. You know, if you do, and there's simple things like that you can draw from, very simple things, which is quite strange to do. But if you're feeling anxious, basically, if you're in that level of feeling anxiety, whatever, it's continuous, whatever, it's a good idea, no matter how strange. And by the way, this is science, ironically. That, and this comes from heart math, that what you can do if you're anxious, basically, if you're worried about stuff and continuously, because it's hard not to be, because you're being flooded with information, mixed information. But what you can do, so if you're feeling anxious, a good idea, whatever you're anxious about, that usually is in the stomach, basically, rather than in the head. It can come from the head, but it's usually in the stomach. What's a good idea to do is to take that worry and imagine that you take it out of your body and then bring it into your heart, believe it or not, bring it into your heart and imagine it dropping into a pool of warmth inside your heart. Now, this sounds really weird, okay? Basically, and scientists are doing this, which is really good. Basically, but if you bring it into your heart and it drops into this infusion of warmth, remember what your heart is about. Your heart's about warmth, it's about connection, it's about love, it's about affection. And if you do that, that simple metaphor and that simple symbolic gesture tends to dissolve a lot of anxiety in that way. Now, the thing is, don't take my word for it, try it out. If it doesn't work, you probably die or something, but I won't be around, so it's not going to get it. No, but reality is,
for Brian.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but no, the reality is, try those things. They're simple things. Now, another thing to do, just as to give sort of your guys something to take from this, rather than abuse or criticism or our sort of narcissism, whatever it is. Yeah. But a good idea, basically, it's really good. Remember, to ground yourself in a context like this, always realizing that, you know, you don't just ignore what's happening to the body, you accept what's happening to the body and then you change or respond to it, rather than just saying it's not happening and trying to distract yourself. Distraction's good only for a point, okay? But the thing is, making sure that you're actually able to tune into the body and calm it down. So a very simple exercise. And I'm going to talk it through. And obviously, if you're doing it at home, whatever, basically just, you know, stand up and do it and take your time to do it, right? But ultimately, the first thing to do is that as you stand, now coaches, we're coaches, all of us are coaches to a different level in terms of different applications. Basically, but coaches often use this as a technique just to ground themselves before they go in and meet a client or whatever. So actually, the good coaches, I can see you're confused. Obviously, the best coaches, which is me. And no, I didn't. No, a lot of coaches do this, okay? Or I'm just making it up. I don't know, one or the other. I don't know. I have conversations with myself. Probably both. It's probably both, yeah. So I read in the book, but I'm going to claim credit for it. So that's the best way to do it, isn't it? So, no, actually, this is I give credit to Robert Dills for this one. I'll give you the bad version. Go buy the Robert's book and you get it right. But ultimately, one of the things to do is that as you're, you know, before you go into any sort of environment that requires your attention, your focus, your awareness, and that could be going outside, even going to the shops or meeting people, whatever. It's a good idea just to stand and bring your attention to your mind. Just simply allow your attention to go to your mind. You can close your eyes if you want to do that. Basically, bring your attention to your mind, basically, and just be aware and say to yourself, this is my mind, this is my brain. And basically, this is the brain that allows me to come up with ideas, to be creative, to be focused, to solve problems, to engage, to connect, and lots of things. Now, from your mind, imagine there's a loop of light coming out all the way, all different directions, basically moving all out from you. Just literally, and you can pick your favorite color, nice bright light color if you want, and just wrapping and looping around it, coming back into your feet and back up into your mind. As you do that, then bring it down into your heart. And as you move your attention, your awareness, your focus into your heart, just say, this is my heart. And then this is a heart that loves and that reaches out to people, that connects people, that feels warmth and feels that sense of connection with the world. Allow that light, perhaps even green if you choose to, just send it all the way out from you, through you and around you, and looping all around the earth and the globe if you like, basically as far as your imagination will take you. And as you do that, and it comes back and loops back into you, bring your attention down to your tummy. And as you do that, remember that this is the seat of your intuition. This is your guidance missile. This will tell you what's actually working, what's not working. This gives you the sense of it's okay or it's not, or a yes or it's no, or it's right or it's wrong. This gives you that information that you've been looking for a lot of the time to tell you how to do all of this stuff. Seed into that and sense it and let that spread all the way out and around and through you and back into you. Now, as you do that, just pull it all the way back up and let it center down and feel your feet on the ground and just feel grounded and just say, I'm centered. Basically. And from there, that only takes a few moments. Open your eyes and continue on. Now, you can do this a number of ways. You can simply bring the attention through you and around back to you, or you can expand it outwards. Remember, we're social human beings. The truth of it is we know that thoughts are things. And when you send out sensation, it's a bit like dropping the pebble into the ocean. It can have ripple effects. Whether it affects your behavior, changes your behavior, changes other people's behavior towards you, what you'll end up doing having a wider, deeper impact. These are the reasons why they do meditations and group meditations, and the Dalai Lama does all this type of stuff to change the frequency in the world. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. At the very least, it'll make you feel good. It's a good idea just to center, to tune in, to balance every so often. And it only takes a few minutes to do that, just to remind yourself, to mind yourself, and just to be where you are.
That's great, Brian. I love that. That's a great exercise. And I know, obviously, so Richard, when he does a lot of these fast phobia cures or when he's working with people as well, and I've got to say it's one of the most effective techniques that I normally use when I work with people, is obviously, appreciating and understanding that we normally tend to have our feelings and emotions within our stomach, and that they move in a certain direction in our body or wherever they are. And, normally, if you think about it, people will start moving or thinking in their head in what direction it moves, and then simply spinning it slowly in the opposite direction and then faster. And I've got to tell you, my experience is 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 times when you do that or work with someone, simply moving whatever that feeling is into the opposite direction has a phenomenal impact, and very quick and instant. So that's a great thing. And I know, obviously, we've all been trained with Richard, and we're all big fans of NLP, but obviously NLP is a phenomenal skill that, provides people with techniques that are proven, that have worked for years and on millions of people. So, yeah, absolutely.
And this taps a little bit further even than NLP. It taps into polyvagal theory. And basically that is about the 3 brains in the body. So this type of spinnings, you're saying, really effective in that way. But what you're doing when you go like mind, heart and tummy, you're connecting the 3 brains, which is really useful from that point of view. So basically, very often, as you'll know, at least for my thing, I spent most of my life, and I do spend most of my life, walking around with only a head. I don't think I've got a body or a heart. And basically, as you can see, I've no compassion. But ultimately, a lot of people do that, yeah. A lot of people, they're just operating from their head all the time. So they're trying to solve their problems through their thinking. And thinking's not, it's not the only place to solve it. Basically, you can solve it through sensation, through your heart sensation, through your tummy, and connecting those 3 parts, basically. And there's a lot of science backing that up as well. And as you know, like Richard is ahead of the science most of the time anyway. But ultimately, there's a lot of science backing that up, saying tapping into those areas does a lot for basically alignment, congruence, and being able to interact and respond in the world, as you were saying earlier, Bernardo.
And I was going to say that for those of you that obviously the mind is not appealing, and you use your chin with the mask, you can do your chin, your tummy, your heart, and your tummy. So, whatever. I suppose,
yeah. Your chin is probably the most important thing, and your neck. If you got sufficient neckage, then you can actually do lots of stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's very important.
Sufficient neckage.
Yeah. So, and the less hair you have, the more successful you are.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, Jesus, he had a lot of hair, but he wasn't that successful. Yeah. He got crucified, so we were probably only going to get murdered.
Love it.
Take this serious, guys. You're not taking this serious enough. This is a really serious issue.
We are. And obviously, there's a lot of, there is serious within what we're sharing, obviously.
Actually, I love all this because in fact, what does it do? Humor lightens the whole mode of it. And one thing I love about your work, Brian, is the fact that sort of there's always humor underpinning what you're doing. And even some of the most serious things get across better because of the aspect of humor.
Well, that's not true. It's when you've no substance, you have to rely on humor because I have nothing else. I lack substance. I'm just trying to wing it here.
Welcome to my world.
And I've got to say, Brian, you've done a fantastic job so far.
Yeah, I'm lacking substance. Can you about it?
No, I'm saying winging it. You've had a phenomenal career winging it. No, listen,
Yeah,
Brian's been at the forefront for many, 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 many years. And actually, we had a previous episode where we interviewed Owen Fitzpatrick, and I know you both have worked very closely. So you obviously
I don't know who he is. I've never met him before, and I refuse to discuss or talk about him in any manner means. I don't know who. Sorry, I can't hear you.
He didn't really say many nice things about you either, so don't worry.
No, it's a mutual hate.
Sure. You both worked, and you've done a great job in not only around the world, but in Ireland as well, yeah.
And by the way, The Cynical Optimists is a brilliant book, and I was there at the launch in Dublin.
Indeed, yeah.
And it was like, and actually what I love, and Bernardo, I'm sure you've seen it because I'm sure you've done it as I have, when Brian and Owen do a double induction of hypnosis, it's one of the most powerful things I've ever seen. Those of you who love hypnosis, you have to one day get an induction or a double induction from Brian and Owen. Of course, Brian does a lot of downloads with his hypnotherapy. Do you just tell us a little bit more about that and why you think it works? Because, by the way, I recommend everybody, including my family, to download your hypnotherapy recordings.
Okay, I know you've forgotten the name, and you've been trying to bumble through that and fumble through it.
I did bumble. Well, I told you that's my line.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm glad you forgot the name because I'm not going to repeat it. I know. The reality is that basically the bottom line is. There's kind of two forms of hypnosis, I suppose, the best way to do it. And with NLP kind of blends both of them. It leans towards the Ericksonian, but it incorporates a little bit of traditional as well. And a lot of the stuff that I will do a bit of both of that. And people see what I do really is I, script out some stuff, and that allows people to really just to relax and tap into their unconscious. And that's very useful for a lot of people. It's suggestive therapy or just basic suggestion, which helps people just to run stuff through your mind. If you run things through your mind, if you run success through your mind, if you run health through your mind, if you run comfort through your mind, if you run those things through your mind, you're going to find basically that, your body goes searching for it. Your body's a search engine. So if you put something into it, it starts to search for it. So if you put in good ideas, good suggestions, good thoughts, basically, and in a nice relaxed frame, then the body starts to log it as important. As it logs it as important, it starts to track it as important. And that's where you get these things like when people talk about the law of attraction and stuff like that. Really what it is the law of effect. And what we're doing in these hypnosis audios basically is just instigating the law of effect, allowing you to flood your mind with ideas, with concepts, with imaginings, all that sort of the brain will actually register and track it. Now, a lot of people don't know why certain goals are achieved and certain goals aren't achieved, okay? And really what it comes down to is a little place in the brain called the reticular activating system. And basically when something goes through that and it's highlighted and logged, then the brain starts to search for it. That's where we get that serendipity and all this type of stuff, where we get this moment, I never would have imagined it. Not true. You did imagine, you just forgot, yeah? So basically once it's logged into the brain, and the audios do that basically, and any suggestion does that, or any session or something, and you guys do that all of the time, and you do it in a more conversational way. The only difference between the audios in that way is basically that it's a little bit more structured purely because you don't have the client always in front of you type of thing. But you guys are doing it every single day, basically when you're talking to people, and basically you're just doing it in an Ericksonian way, which is much more conversational and as equally effective and sometimes even more effective in that way. So these things are really good and they're really, really useful to do. The trick is just try them out, find out, basically, and you have fun with it. And if you try them out and found out, I won't have got paid. So it makes no difference to me.
Paul Boross is the pitch doctor. He's a professor of humorology and a business activator. If you would be interested in booking him to speak, train your teams, or executive coach, you can reach him by going to www.paulboross.com now.
Well, it's very interesting, the reticular activating system. And just for our listeners to sort of, because we're bandying words about that we all know, but actually it's that same part of the brain that when you want to buy a certain car or a certain bag or a certain bike or whatever, wherever you go, you start to see it because you primed your brain or your mind to actually see it. And that's what is so brilliant about your hypnosis audio.
That's also not true. It's your eyes that sees it, Paul. Your eyes, yeah. Bernardo, what are you doing to us here? Like, look at him. He's just saying crazy stuff all the time. And me and you are beacons of common sense.
Science.
I'm doing a little common sense here.
Exactly.
A lot of common sense here today. No, it's funny. I mean, I think the great thing is that people will have to listen to this podcast at least 2 or 3 times to get the serious parts of it, which is what it was all about. This is what isolation to inspiration is about. Listen, get over it. You know, your life was terrible. You know, get the fuck over it, and that's it, basically. So yeah, I think we're doing a great job. So well done.
Yeah, and in the meantime, just there's certain things we know. Human beings are smart. That's the bottom line. We know how to do things. We know how to keep safe. We know how to do these things. But have a laugh while you're doing it. That's the real message. It is a message of what you're doing here as well. It's just trying as much fun as possible as you're getting on and getting things done. And trust yourself. You got a lot of wisdom in there. Basically, in NLP, we say you have all the resources you need. You're a unique human being. There's only one of you, and you can do stuff basically, and you can create a life that's even better despite the adversity, despite the circumstance.
And I've got to say, even those, and when Brian says that everyone's smart, even those that wear, the mask around their neck, I've seen a lot of people wearing it around their arm. Even those people are smart too. Okay, so you guys are included too. There's a lot of people I've seen wearing around their arm, which that makes sense. You can sneeze down there, and you breathe through your elbow.
But are all Hungarians smart? Bernardo, are all Hungarian? Oh, well, let's say our particular Hungarians. Is there anyone you know that's from Hungary originally? Would you say? Just a thought.
I've never met anyone, to be honest.
Well, there you go. That's probably it. Like, yeah.
I hurt.
Yeah. My great friend Paul. Yeah, basically, he knows how to take my abuse.
Well, you get used to it after a while. I'm inured.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just jealous of all the awards you win. You keep winning awards and stuff like Do you know why? Do you know why, Brian?
No. Because I'm much better than you.
No, because you're much nicer than me. So I agree. Hands up. I agree. I'll take that one on the chin for sure. Okay, without the mask.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, back to the practical stuff. I keep hearing people saying that they have Zoom fatigue and they're fed up with talking to a screen. Can you give people some advice on what to do with that? And is it a real thing?
Okay, well, basically the bottom line is really what it is the fatigue comes from the fact that they're paying a lot more focused attention, which is kind of, if you think about it, that's what you should be doing in life. So bottom line is, but it can be sort of tiring in some way. It's just like any device can be tiring to watch. But apart from that, remember, this is our way to connect. And just think about it in all sort of honesty. Basically, here we are, 3 people really from different parts of the world. And we're connected through a medium like this. That's just phenomenal. I do have conversations with people in the States, within Japan, with every country in the world. That's so cool, right? We might not be able to hug them or something like that, but the bottom line is we can connect to them. So the Zoom fatigue, I don't know, it should be Zoom excitement in my mind anyway, because you're reaching out to so many people that you would never have reached before.
Unless you're like Jennifer. I don't know if you saw that girl on social media. So this was like a Zoom group, 6 or 7 of them. And Jennifer decided to go to the toilet. And she left her camera on and off she went. And they saw her standing up, going to the toilet. They saw her because of where the computer was positioned. They saw her sitting on the toilet and, cleaning herself. And everyone's like that. Poor Jennifer has a different type of Zoom fatigue. And
exactly.
This is what I love about Zoom. Is like, I don't know you, but I mean, not me, but I know a lot of you guys probably spend a lot of time looking, oh my God, is that the background? Really? When was the last time you tidied up? Or some people use these green screens that all you can see is the head. You can just see the head because they're wearing a green jumper and all of a sudden, like, all you can see is the floating head around, So I think the whole idea around Zoom is like, listen, guys, there's a camera there, okay? There's a camera, it's live. Just make a bit of an effort and make sure that if you do stand up, like Paul did in one of our last interviews, Paul stood up, he had his pants on, it was deeply embarrassing. We had to stop the recording, start all over again. It's not acceptable, guys. You have to up our game.
and Bernardo clipped it and put it on YouTube. So I've now got 8 million views.
So that's really irresponsible behavior. You blame Bernardo for something that you've done. You know what I mean? That's
let me just burst your bubble. Only 6 people watched it. They didn't find it.
Yeah, very good. So it wasn't working any best of you. Yeah. So yeah, but no,
they all liked it.
That's the problem. That is a serious problem. You know, when you get those phone calls with the heavy breathing, that's a difficulty. But that's not endorsement. That's not validation. Just you need to park that stuff. That's not good. Like you need to get different friends. Yeah.
Any friends? Actually, what I did love is in the midst of that is the reframe from Zoom fatigue to Zoom excitement. I think it's a great reframe because it is how you think about it, isn't it? It's kind of like, how lucky are we to have the technology to be able to see our friends and our colleagues?
I was actually thinking at the beginning of this interview when we were talking about, kind of the constraints of what we have now. So how could we have done this like 60 years ago, 40 years ago? How could the 3 of us be able to do an interview at the same time? I was just actually trying to picture. So I would send Paul a letter, then Paul would write his letter with our letter. He would then put the questions together, send it off to Brian, and then post it to Brian. Brian, obviously, because he's in a cave, probably wouldn't have opened these posts for 6 months. It would have come back to Paul, and then we would have read these questions. It would have taken forever.
I would have felt maybe that the letter coming to the door was infected. Yeah, so it had a virus, and basically, so napalm or something in it. Something
from Hungary.
Yeah, exactly. If it came from Hungary, and then I would say, people are out to get me. You know what I mean? That's why I'm an introvert. I'm not an introvert by nature. Basically, it's the world is out to get me, and they're hunting me down. And it would have been started by you, Bernardo. I don't know why you done that to me. Like basically, I remember that letter as well. Like, do you know what I mean? It was just felt like it was yesterday. It's just terrible. Yeah. So, So I'm sure people will get insight from this.
I was going to say that I think one of the things that I'm kind of sharing with people is that I know we all this whole thing about new, which is not a new anymore. It's been here for a couple of months, guys. Get over it. The fact is that I don't think people appreciate how much things have changed, how much things are changing in front of our eyes, and how it is here forever. Many things, kind of like you couldn't teach from home. You couldn't, kids couldn't learn from home. We couldn't work from home. You couldn't, doctors couldn't see you from home. So I just don't think really people are not only appreciating, embracing this new reality we have, where now we don't have to commute for 2 hours, and my kids can be taught from home. So I think that's what people are definitely missing the point of the advantages of what's happening and how our life could become so much better moving forward once we get back to some kind of normality.
Yeah, well, Virginia Satir would have a nice saying, which says, like, for every loss, there's a gain. For every gain, there's a loss. So basically, the reality is, if you look at something that you've lost, there is something that you gain as well. And it's the intimacy, the smaller community, the smaller levels of connection, stuff like that, where we've got to focus more on those things. And we're focusing on the things that matter most, the things that make people happy. Like, we talked about the happiness habit there earlier on. And the reality is, if you've read that, or if you read that, you're going to find that the things that I invite people to focus on are the simplest things, which are things like connection. It is about basically the people that are around you. Like, put it this way, in the simple terms, one of the exercises would be, imagine basically if you'd only, a month left to live. And we let people run that out, and basically, and what they come along and they say, okay, well, if I'd only a month left to live, I would spend time with my loved ones. Well, guess what? That time is being enforced on you at the moment, which can be really, really good. Now, I did it basically to one guy, and it says, okay, so what would you do if you had 1 month left to live? And it was an exercise in one of the seminars, and he folded his arms and he sat there. He says, Jerry, what's the problem? He says, what do you mean, what's the problem? He says, you're not doing the exercise. No fucking point, to be dead in a month. So he gave up on that one, yeah. So the reality is that, and then I had another guy in Scotland, and I asked him to do the exercise, and he was planning his funeral. That's not the point of the exercise. The point of this is, the point is to say, okay, if you had a month left to live now, and just to place it in that context, like, what would you do? Now, yes, of course, some of that stuff might be travel and all that stuff, but most of that stuff is going to be spending time with the people that you love. That's what it's mostly about. And it's doing simple things like eating together, spending time together, being with the people that you love, which is what you've got in abundance now. You remember, we don't like to be told what to do. That's the problem. Like, Irish people in particular, like, basically, if it's a rule, it says drive on this side of the road, we'll drive on the other side of the road purely because it's a rule. Yeah, we don't always take common sense in that way. We just defy it in that way. It's that inbuilt thing. But the reality is,
your pubs, especially when they close your pubs, Brian.
That's just unforgivable.
You can do, John.
Exactly. That's just, you do realize, like as Tommy Tiernan said, like, the Irishman was only complete when the 5 pints of Guinness went in. You know what I mean? So before that, we were not complete. So yeah, for sure. But we find ways to drink. That'll never be something. We're very creative around those things. There's always a way. But ultimately, yeah. So the thing really is, though, even despite that we're in a very challenging situation, and basically for a lot of the time, there's so much we can do. And it is about focusing, what can we do? Basically, where's the movement in it? Stop trying to rebuild the old picture. Create something new. Socrates talked about that. It's don't worry about what was gone past. Like, basically, talk about what you can build different and build new. So rather than saying, oh, this is the way it should be, or this is the way it used to be, this is the way it was. No, it's not. So it's changed, and it's fundamentally changed. It's going to continue to change. And the only thing constant is change. It's about saying, okay, well, how can I, in this new changed landscape, which is always the same? I like to tell people, like, that started out in business. The two of you here, you started, including myself then as well, basically, which is 1, 2, 3 of us here, yeah. Basically, so the thing is that we started out in business, and there was a time when we started out and we didn't know what the future was. We didn't know what the landscape was. We didn't even know what the marketing probably was. We looked out and said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Basically, I don't know whether I'll win, lose or draw, but I'm going to give it a shot. But that's how we should be looking at reality all of the time. Yes, we can take in information. Yes, we can take in guidance. Yes, we can take in all that stuff. But the thing is, that part of saying, well, let's give it a shot. Let's see how far we can go. Let's see how much we can do. Let's see in this new landscape that we can't predict. What about our goals? What about your goals? What about your mission? What about your vision? What about your values? What about what you want to have happen? Stop paying attention to what you're not getting. Stop paying attention to what people are saying you can't have. Stop paying attention to stuff that is stuck or not working or not the way you'd like it to be, and focus on what do you want to build instead, rather than complaining about the government, say, in that context there. How can you be the leader in your own place? How can you be the person that's the architect? How can you create the happiness that you want? How can you build it within the new frame of reality, the new frame of existence? Basically, and that's really what it's about. And that's what I know 3 of us here, that's how we approach life, really, in that way, that we say, listen, just go forward and see what we can do with this.
Progress and purpose.
Sorry, guys. I was just going to say that we're going to have to wrap it up in a minute. And the reason we're running a little bit late is we spent the first 15 minutes there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? We were saying that those are the probably common words anyway.
And we spend the next 45 minutes going, why can I hear him?
Exactly. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So Bernardo, I'd like to thank you for the interview. You personally, I think you've done a great job, basically. And unfortunately, we had an interruption throughout it, but that's just static. We can deal with that. You know what I mean? And Paul, how are you, Paul? Yeah.
Fix it in the edit.
Exactly. No, listen, guys, great to talk to the two of you. Really, really pleasure. And basically, always great to see you both, being into light. And hopefully someone finds something of use in this.
Yeah, no, hopefully, yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for your wisdom and expertise. I really, really appreciate it. It was a fun show, and there's a lot of very great insights in it. So thank you so much. Thank you both.
You're welcome. See you guys. Okay, take it easy.
Bye, and thank you so much for listening to Inspire.
We're putting it straight in the bin.
Yeah, it's straight in the bin. Okay. So hopefully you get something out. All right. Listen, good to meet you finally, Bernardo. By the way, yeah.
Good, great to meet you as well, Brian. Thank you, and thank you so much for listening from isolation to inspiration. Hopefully, you'll come back and listen to us again. Hopefully,
all right. Doubtfully, basically, I didn't get paid for this one. How do what am I supposed to live on? For God's sake, yeah.
Where's the mute button? Where's the mute button?
Okay. When I was talking about having expectations, you want to lower yours. Do you know what I mean? This is just way too high. Be more realistic like that.
No, we did lower them, and then we invited
That's why you got me.
This was the low. We were really expecting lower. This went really, really low.
Exactly. All right, guys.
Low. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Take it easy. I'm going to go now.
Great
to talk.
If you're interested in working with Bernardo and being coached or mentored by him, you can reach him via www.bernardo-moya.com. If you're interested in speaking at the Best You Expo, getting involved online, or on the Best You TV, please go to www.thebestyou.co.